Welcome to the Dad Show podcast. How y'all doing? Today is part 3.
You know, everyone left that room better, knowing Jesus more. Because Rachel's biggest fear, she had 2 fears in dying, is that we wouldn't be okay without her, and that people would turn from Jesus because she didn't get healed.
Wow.
And neither of those have happened. We've had hard days, but we're okay.
Yeah.
We're doing it, right?
Yes,
you know, and her story continues to lead people to him. And so being able to, I didn't answer your question. Sorry, I got sidetracked.
No,
but
you're
being
good.
able
You're
to
good.
be in that room, which I didn't leave. I would go home and shower every once in a while. So I'd see the kids. My in-laws were there with the kids. So I wasn't dad. And that was hard.
Yeah.
Like that was really hard for me because I remember just wanting to be dad.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to be dad again.
Exactly.
Because kids would come up every day and spend time with us or whatever, but they were in school and they were doing life. And remember the hardest conversation I had to have, because Rachel's still with it at this time, and she said, "You need to tell the kids I'm not coming home."
Wow.
We had made the decision. The doctors had stopped treatment. Rachel would kind of be in and out of consciousness at times, and every morning she'd wake up and say, "What's the plan today? What's the plan today?" And I was like, "Are you good? Are you comfortable?" I was like, "I'm good. I'm comfortable." Then that's good. That's the plan. We're going to keep you comfortable. That's what we're going to do every day. What's the plan today? We're just going to keep you comfortable. But she knew she was in the medical field, and she's like, I'm not coming home.
Yeah.
And barring a miracle, which we continue to pray for, and it could have happened, and we believed it could happen till the last day.
With her waking up, and I don't mean to cut you off at all, with her waking up every day and asking, "What's the plan?" Like, man, I put myself in that position. I'm like, okay, God, are you trying to tell me something? Do we need to continue on? Because you are always wanting that miracle to happen, and I'm for 100% in this aspect. But man, I put myself in that position. I'm like, I'd be thinking in the back of my head, like, okay, maybe we do need. And to do something.
Man, I did. I actually, gosh, a year after she died, 2 years after she died, I finally came to the conclusion that I couldn't fix this.
Yeah.
Right. We sought all the help we could. We went to the best doctors we could. We spent all the money we could. Like we spent it all. We had a ton of debt.
Yeah.
Trying to figure it, and I'd do it all over again. Yeah. But this didn't surprise him.
Yes.
This wasn't something I could fix.
Yeah.
No matter what we did, the Lord had his plan, and this was part of it. And Rachel always said that, before she ever got diagnosed, she thought she would one day die from cancer, and that her purpose would be revealed through that. And it bothered me so much that she would talk stupid talk like that until it became true.
Yeah.
And
do you believe that was manifested by any chance?
Man, gosh, that's a good question. It's a great question. I
don't get me wrong, 110% God's plan.
Yeah.
No deviation from that.
That's a good question. I don't know that I've ever sat with that. She probably would have said it is, or it was. Man, that's a really good question. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
Because I truly believe, and don't worry about going off on tangents and every, different pathways on this podcast, because we do it quite often. But I truly believe that if a person has cancer and you don't tell them, I believe mentally they end up living longer.
Sure. Isn't that the truth?
Or not just cancer, but some type of medical diagnosis that is considered terminal.
Sure.
As opposed to telling a person, you've got 6 months. I'm in the medical field. I've seen it tons of times that you tell a person, for the most part, you've got 90 days, you've got 6 months. At that time frame, they're gone.
They give up.
And,
so many. Yeah.
And it's so mental.
Yeah, bro. I completely agree with that.
And I don't mean to be disrespectful with the manifestation, but like if somebody believes that, then
that's
more than likely it's going to happen.
Sure. That is so true. I've never thought through that. She knew that her purpose would be revealed through dying.
Yeah.
But
it's so powerful that she said that her testimony would be revealed,
absolutely, man.
And growing God's kingdom would be through that.
Through dying, and still to this day, like I said, it still does. It still leads people to the Lord.
Yes.
I go back to the story of having to tell my children that mommy wasn't coming home. And that was Rachel saying, she's like, man, That was the hardest conversation I had in that hospital. That was harder than telling the doctor to shoot her up, to make her, like whatever. It was having to sit with my kids in the lobby of the hospital and tell them mommy wasn't going to come home, but she was going to go home to heaven.
Yeah.
Right. But when mommy went home to heaven, daddy got to come home.
Yeah.
That was the thing. I got to come be with y'all again, and just having my 3 little ones just bawling, dude. Like I will never forget having to watch them, just because we never whispered around them.
Yeah.
We said it wasn't good. We said things were not great. Like we would mention but to be able to just definitively almost say like, mommy's not coming home.
Yeah. That's,
she's going to go be with Jesus.
I respect, and I've heard you on other podcasts and through your other stories that you did have the hard conversations with your kids. You didn't hide it from them.
Sure, man.
And that's one thing that we started out with Kennedy and Lincoln. Like if we're going for appointments and we knew that they were going to have a blood draw, we would be like, it may or may not happen today, because they don't like an ouchie. They don't like a shot. And we learned that it was better off to be 100% transparent with them and say,
yeah, man,
it's going to hurt for a second. Like, yes, we are having a blood draw today. You're going to have a shot.
Instead of the uncertainty in that.
Exactly. Yeah. Instead of hitting them with
man. I just didn't want to whisper. I didn't want my kids to not feel like they were involved in it. I didn't want them to turn into teenagers and not trust me because I was whispering. And so there's all these things that I'm like,
powerful,
man, let's just have the hard conversations, And so we let them in. And so I told him, I said, mommy's going to go home to heaven and daddy will come home. I don't know when that's going to be or whatever. And we had that conversation. And the night that Rachel passed, I remember going home and the kids knowing there wasn't even a conversation to be had. Like all the kids were sleeping. I went in and kissed them and mommy went home.
They knew.
Mommy went home. That's what happened. They said, mommy went home. Mommy went home. And you're home, daddy. You're home. And we all went down into my room and had a slumber party for the next, 3 years in my room, which we're just getting over, which is great. But yeah, it was a super surreal moment that I got to be dad again. Yeah. I got to come home. And I remember my pastor about 3 days before Rachel died, he could tell where we were getting. He'd seen this 100 times, right? I'd never experienced death that close, where I'm watching. Yeah. And he knew it was getting close. And he said, hey man, I just need you to know it's okay to be relieved.
Wow.
When she goes. And I was like, man, are you allowed to say that? I'm still praying for a miracle, right? Like I'm still, and it's okay to be relieved. And I remember when she died, man, I was so relieved. Wow. There was no more pain. There was no more hurt. There was no more uncertainty. There were no more appointments. There was no more, and I got to be dad.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to go figure out what this looks like now, and like she went home, she won, and cancer was beat that day. Amen. But I was so relieved, man, because it was so much to take on and try to balance, to your original question, because I wasn't able to be dad, and I'm trying to be the supportive spouse, and I'm trying to navigate all these things and make these decisions. And it was just like this huge burden. It's like, not that her being here was a burden, but like just to breathe.
Exactly. Yeah. And know that she's in the hands of Jesus
in the hands,
too.
Man. Yeah. She's good.
I mean, that's like I said, I gave Kennedy and Lincoln both to God. And
yeah, man. So
to know that she is fully in his arms and taken care of. And like you said, no more anything else.
Yeah, man.
That's huge. And I go back to what you said in the hospital, when she knew that she was, passing away and the end was coming, that she said, I have nothing else to give but Jesus. And you say that we're dying.
Yeah, man.
And we need to have childlike faith. My kids give me so much inspiration whenever it comes to telling people about Jesus. They're both, thank the good Lord, they're both saved and they both been baptized. And like us as adults, or just being humans, like we want to pull away from telling people about Jesus. Like we almost shy about it, like if it comes up in conversation, that's great, but I don't want to push it on you. Yep. And man, my kids are, they'll invite people to church that we don't even know. They'll saying, there's certain things that, I've heard, like one of my friends just playing around at dinner or something, be like, man, nobody loves me. And, I remember Lincoln palming up, Jesus does. Jesus
loves
you,
does.
you know. And
that,
so
man.
that's so powerful that her saying, I don't have anything else to give but Jesus. And it just puts me in the mind frame.
That's enough. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's so good. So that night, man, that you went home and, that your kids just knew you all piled up in the bed together and had a slumber party. Like, how was it knowing that you could just, I got two parts to this. How was it like, you're like, I'm able to be a dad again. Like, I'm able to 100% be present again with my kids and be dad. But the second question is, how did it feel realizing that you was going to do it alone?
Man, that's such a good question. And I think I shared it in the book, but that first night, so we all pile up, like you said, pile up in my bed. All the kids come downstairs, we're all together again. I mean, I'm like, man, this is it. This is what it looks like now. In the middle of the night, 3, 4 a.m., Hadley wakes up and just projectile vomits all over the bed. Out of nowhere. Wasn't sick, wasn't feeling like
welcome to being a dad again,
bro. And I don't do vomit. Rachel did vomit. That was her thing. Rachel was a nurse. She handled puke. When I see puke, I puke. Like, that's my thing. So I'm sitting here like, what in the heck is he, like, exorcist style all over. I'm plugging my nose, dry heaving, like trying to clean it up, throwing her in the shower. The other two are like, oh my gosh, so I'm setting up pallets on the floor. And I remember sitting in the bathroom, like, half naked, because I got all over me too, thinking, Rachel, you son of a gun. Give me a day. Give me 24 hours to figure this out. But also it's like, okay, like, this is it.
Let's go.
I got to clean up the puke now. I got to figure it out. And
it's game time.
And then, like, literally a week later, they both have head lice. Then a week after that, COVID hits. And I'm like, Rachel, you did not prepare me for this.
Wow.
You prepared me for a lot, but you didn't prepare me for this. But it is. You figure it out. Like, I could have done the puke, during our marriage, but I didn't. Rachel did it. She hopped up and did those things, right? Like, I didn't realize I even could. I physically could until you have to do it. And you just figure it out.
Yeah.
And it may not look as pretty. I'm dry heaving. I know Hadley feels bad, and like, it's the whole thing. But like,
it's where you wish you had a camera on the wall and just catch
that
the whole
whole thing. Right? I wish we could have videoed that. But we figured it out, And Rachel, Rachel was so good. I mean, there's some certain things she couldn't see, like that night and COVID and things that were coming, but she was so good at putting people in our lives that were going to take care of things that I didn't know how to take care of.
Yeah.
She had girls' hair appointments set up already, and she had one of our friends, Ashley, who was set to take them to their hair appointments and make sure their hair was always taken care of. To this day, there's still people that are making sure, like, the things that I just didn't pay attention to, I just wouldn't have got their hair cut.
Yeah,
They're supposed to be long, right?
You almost take it for granted what your significant other's doing.
That's the thing, and that's what it comes down to. I would challenge all men to be a noticer and, like, look around and see what your person does on a daily basis, man. The house don't clean itself. The laundry doesn't do itself. And I'm not saying that's what women do, but that's Rachel did. All the mom, like, all these things, right? Like, the lunches don't just get made.
Exactly.
The thing, or on the other side of it, if you're the one paying the bills and you're not there anymore, the bills don't just get paid. Like, all these things, right? Like, I had no idea until she was gone, all the things that were being done that I just thought were done.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, like, I look around and see the things that your person does, notice them and be grateful for them, because until you got to clean up the puke yourself, or until you got to make the lunches yourself, or until you got to do the carpool yourself, you don't realize, man, how much your partner brings to the table.
Does, yeah.
Yeah. You take it for granted.
Yeah.
Take it for granted. And so, anyway, I was thrust into it, but Rachel did such a good job preparing. This wasn't a sudden death. We had time to prepare for a lot of things, and Rachel made sure, again, that we were okay and that people were led to him.
That's so amazing. I think about the story of you saying you had a Super Bowl party right there in the hospital.
Yeah, dude. So Rachel's a big Chiefs fan. Grew up in Kansas City. Had never seen the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. And we had a party, dude. We had about 50 people in this room. They gave her a bigger room because they knew she was going to be there a while, so it wheeled us into a bigger room. We had this nice room that I stayed in with her every night, and I mean, We did have alcohol in the hospital that night. My brother rolled in a little keg, and like people just ignored what we were doing in that room, because what happened in Rachel's room was fine. And so we had a projection screen. Everybody was dressed in Chiefs gear. Even if you hated the Chiefs, you were rooting for the Chiefs. Like all over the world, people were rooting for the Chiefs that night. A couple of the players actually sent her videos saying, "Hey, we're praying for you. We're thinking of you. We're going to go out there and try to win this thing for you." And it was so cool. I think God was a Chiefs fan that night, because they were losing pretty big, and it's like, man, is this how it's going to end? And they ended up coming back and winning, and Rachel got to celebrate that. And with again, there's a picture I think on my social of 50 people in that room just cheering on the Chiefs with her, which the hospital, that doesn't happen in the hospital very often, and so it was the rules were ignored that day for sure.
That's awesome.
Man.
That's great, and that's needed. Little stuff like that just means the world to somebody going through
for sure.
Something of that
for
nature.
Sure.
So in my life, prior to my kids being diagnosed with their rare disease, there was two local families that their kids had been hit in a car by a train, and a few had passed away. And really long story short, it's two local pastors that both of their kids were the ones in the car running together. Two of them lost their lives, two of them lived. So watching them go through that, cling to God, stay close to God, stay true to God, through that, where they could easily at any point in time turned and started hating God, whatever. But watching them go through that, I was like, if there's ever a tragedy in my life, that's how I want to go through it. So is there any story that you can remember, or was there any person that you've seen go through something hard prior to this? And where I'm getting at with this, I just didn't know if God may have let you see this, had a vision of it, or anything to help prepare you for what Rachel was about to go through and what you're about to endure.
I didn't know cancer until Rachel. We weren't affected by that, right? I didn't know kids lost their moms. I in my life, I've never, I didn't have my elementary friends who lost their mom to cancer. And then you become a part of this community, and everybody's lost their some person, right? Macklin's little birthday party the other day, three of the kids there lost their mom or dad. And it's like, these are 10-year-old, 9-year-old. I can't even fathom, because when I was growing up, that didn't happen. And maybe it did, but we were guarded from it, right? Or whatever it was. I don't know what it was, but, and so I don't know that I had that person or that story. And I'll tell you, I was mad at God, bro.
Wow.
I was mad. I was mad at God when it came back.
Yeah.
It's like, why? Because I remember the first time we got it, we're like, why not us?
Yeah.
We have good insurance. We have things you don't think about at the time. We have the means. We have you, God. We have a community, right? Why not us? We got this. I remember when it came back, I was so mad, man. I'm like, why? Why are you doing this to her?
Yeah.
Take me.
Yeah,
Don't do this to her.
Yeah.
Don't make her walk through this again. And I remember being angry and almost cursing at God for allowing this to happen again, you know? But then there's Rachel. She's like, no, this is it. This is part of what I'm supposed to be here to do.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have impact. We're gonna share stories, and we're gonna lead people to Him through this. And you got to be with me on this, And so I guess if it'd be anyone, it'd be Rachel. Just watching the way that she handled, knowing you're gonna die. Never was angry with God. Never questioned what was happening. Never was always so focused on the fact that she was dying, and she needed to give everybody that she could more of Him.
Yeah.
And that's where I drew more faith from, more belief from, more strength from, watching her, because I don't know that I would have been that way.
Yeah.
I would think I would have been more woe is me.
And that's kind of, so you saying that you was good, not good, but you went through it initially, never questioning, never getting, hateful or anything.
It happens to how many percent of people, right? It just happens, right? And so why not us?
Yeah. And so whenever it came back, you got angry. That's kind of the same way I was with Lincoln. We just went through it with Kennedy, and we stayed close to you, God. We stayed true to you.
Sure.
Why is this happening again? And then I was immediately put back into my place, that it's all in his plan.
Sure.
Like there's no mistakes with that, you know?
Didn't surprise him.
And, you know, and my wife had a harder time with it. And that's where she says I was the rock. Like, she's like, I don't know how in the world we're going to, because she had a lot of PTSD from going through everything with our daughter and everything they'd been through. And she's like, I don't know how I'm going to walk with my son back into that hospital again and go through what we just went through. Lincoln wasn't planned. Lincoln was a blessing for sure. And so, you know, like whenever we found out we were pregnant, or she was pregnant with Lincoln, like, you know, like we fasted, we did certain things, you know, to try and stay close. And, you know, even with that, like right now we could be sitting here saying we did all the right things.
Sure.
Lord, why do you know, and be hateful and turn away. But, you know, immediately, like I said, we turn back to, because there's so much strength that comes from turning to him.
Oh man, isn't that the truth?
Like you think that you can do it yourself. You think that I've got this, and you know, most people get through it okay.
Yeah.
And it's very ugly, but the ones that don't turn to him,
bro, isn't that the truth?
Like, and when you turn to him and feel the power, like we were in Cincinnati, Ohio, and even whenever now we go to our treatments in Minneapolis, Minnesota, hundreds of miles away,
Sure.
I can feel the power of prayer at those places.
Man, that's so good. I remember feeling guilty.
Thank you for coming to watch part 3, and come tomorrow to watch part 4. Thank you for listening to the Dad Show podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Dad Show podcast. Please like, review, and subscribe.